Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins, and today I have the great pleasure of hosting Brandon Sterling again. We lost count, I think, on how many times he's come on. And honestly, I think of him every time I hear the doomers saying that go buy this and go buy that and prep and it's over and you just need my fancy meals that you don't need to store in the fridge, those kind of things. So when things went kerflooey in the Middle East and the new war or the old war or the continuing war, God knows, I'm very curious to hear from Brandon about that. Then I thought of him and wanted to bring you on just to have a look at what's actually happening in the markets. So I'm going to bring him on in a minute. And if you're new to the King Heroes Journey podcast, welcome. We are live on several platforms, Rumble and X, Facebook, YouTube, my new channel there, and Vigilante TV as well should be up. So welcome, and I will bring Brandon on without further ado. Hello, Brandon. Thanks for being here.
Hello. It's good to be back again.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well, despite everyone losing their mind again.
Right. What happens to you when everyone loses their mind again?
Well, that kind of tells me that there's something that everyone's missing that I should probably be paying attention to if I aren't already.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's one good side effect is that it makes you like open your eyes, and if there's stuff that you were maybe wanting to not see, you become more open to seeing. The problem is that it all drives us from fear or invites us to come from that fear place. And I know I'm vulnerable to it with less knowledge about the markets and getting my information more so in the past now than recently, having worked with you some. Then people are just watching the headlines and buying into it half the time, not even really looking at the information behind it, and taking those headlines as some kind of gospel. So we're going to talk today about what's happening in the Middle East. I'm curious to hear your take on that, what you think is happening, the inevitable engineering that's behind it, how they almost always use what's in the news as a way to say, hey, look over here, but don't look over there, to what might be real and true if that's the case. And how you can navigate, how you can let go of, that's my specialty, to help people let go of the fear part and the emotional release. But reality is really good. So I love reality checks, and that's why I like to have you on. Hello, Jen Pepler. Nice to see you over there on Rumble. Welcome. Anybody else that's watching now, come say hello in one of the chats. Love to hear from you. And if you're looking for Brandon, you can find him at his website, safehaven.com. And his YouTube channel, I'll post in the notes as well. This is the new one that you are working from. I noticed a lot. I went looking for some of your old videos there to send people to, and I noticed they're not there. So I don't know if you have them stored somewhere else, or you're just like really not wanting people to see them.
Yeah, I unlisted a lot of my YouTube channels that were public on my channel. So the ones that I unlisted, you can actually find on my Telegram channel. Those I didn't delete on my Telegram. So
Okay. And
yeah, but it's just some older videos that I, just weren't the highest quality compared to what I put out nowadays. So wasn't really relevant to what I'm putting out nowadays either. So got rid of a bunch, particularly videos covering the outlaw stuff because I don't work in that anymore.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the beauties of an entrepreneur's life, that you can, if your interest changes and your focus changes, you can change and you can pivot in that direction. So it's a teeny bit sad, because when people come to me and they've got all the Patriot mythology around PMAs, for example, and I say, yeah, well, there was a guy who was helping with those kind of things, but not so much anymore. They're still lost. You know what I notice, Brendan, is that people, once they invest themselves in some way and spend a lot of time learning in a particular direction, then it just kind of locks in, and
Yep.
it becomes the truth for them. and they're done. They hit the ceiling of the truth, and they're not going to entertain anything that's new. And for me, it's like, well, I always want to deepen into the truth. I want to learn more. If what I had learned is not accurate or an outright lie or is a complete psyop, I want to know. Right? I'm not comfortable if the knowledge is just, oh yeah, okay, I got that, and it's like all caps, thing on your birth certificate, and you can undo that, and you can buy your way to some new status that's going to magically get you out of all the slavery.
Yeah, I mean, from the what seems normal court procedure types to all the way to change your status types, I've proved them all to be frauds. All of them that have showed up on the podcast you've probably seen, on some of the biggest ones. Yeah, and none of these people are getting checked. None of the hosts, none of the gurus. So at this point, people don't appreciate me pointing out the truth on these matters. So why even put out the content anymore? So, there are my viewers that enjoy it, but I would say just based on the comments, vastly people dislike it over like it. It's pretty insane. Like the amount of ad hominems I get, but they can't argue any of the, the law that I present that counteracts everything the guru says, right? Or even I can pull up the receipts of the actual court cases of the guru themselves doing what they said, they did successfully, supposedly, and then here we are publicly showed that they failed time and time again. So you can show that on the screen, and people will still be angry at me, like I'm the bad guy, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I mean, it's just not a good use of my time.
It's because people have no emotional mastery, right? So as soon as they feel bad, a lot of them are wired to, oh, you brought the message and then I felt bad, so it must be you that's the source of feeling bad. Like, we're just such babies when it comes to that. And I have a lot of compassion for that, but it's time for people to get to know their inner psyche, because guess what? The controllers know it way better than you do.
Oh yeah.
Infinitely better.
Yeah, and it's I don't think people realize how designed the whole movement is down to the psychological frameworks on how the hosts present the information, the phrases they use, the exact terminology and wording, and that goes into the frequency heuristics research that I did on the cognitive dissonance video that I have on my channel. I think that's still public. If not, it's on my Telegram. But highly suggest you guys watch that, because it's not really applicable to that stuff, but what we're going to talk about today, actually.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, because some of the frequency heuristics, an example of that would be we're going to war with Iran right now because it's one of the three countries that's not controlled by the Rothschilds, right? I mean, that's like the common phrase that we hear a lot on, whenever Middle East tensions rise up again. But so people hear that line, it sounds good, but does the world actually work that way? Or better question, is that your own thought?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What a rude awakening. The first thing that comes to mind for me was around feminism. And I really felt like I invented that whole,
Really?
oh yes, I internalized it. I downloaded it. I took it in. I made it my own.
Yeah, you made an internal object, ideology. Yeah.
That's it. Exactly. And
Well,
mhm.
that is, I'm glad you said, I've never heard it said that way, because that's what they want you to feel and think, like, and it has worked successfully.
Yeah. They know how to park in your unconscious. And it said really simply, it's through fear. That's when you open the door to to anything what you're hoping is good, but that's when they swoop in and speak to you in the narratives, very carefully chosen narratives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways, I did that training on the archetypes of controlled ops, hoping to show people how to look for those patterns and hear those exact signs and watch for how does all of it leave you feeling. And not to take that as gospel either. That's one of the big differences between men and women, is that we we take our inner experience to be a gospel of the truth.
My
And
truth is what women say a lot.
also, right, exactly. My truth is, yeah,
Immediate red flag.
yeah, for
I mean,
women.
guys say it too, though.
Right.
But
They're not immune to it, but they do tend to resort more to logic
yes.
and information.
Yeah, well, a great example of that, I was talking to a young lady recently, and we're talking about relationship dynamics, and she mentioned, "Oh, I'm independent." But earlier she was describing codependent tendencies. And she was like, "Okay," but I was like, "Okay, what does independent mean though? You might be independent by yourself. You might work a job yourself and support yourself. I mean, that's like the adult bare minimum. Congratulations. That's not independent." But besides that point, uh, that's different to when you're in a relationship. When you're in a relationship, you just described, you outsource all of your thought processes uh, to the external. So yeah, I think that was a good example of that.
Definitely. And someone was just asking for your website, so I'm going to post that. It is in the banner there, but I'll make it clickable by sharing it here in the chat. And my truth BS triggers you too, Jen. Yeah, it's good. It's
Oh,
good to
good.
see that. That used to sound right, and that was all the relativistic way to look at things. That there is a my truth and your truth, and in reality, that's accurate, but it's not useful, right? Like, why wouldn't you go for what actually is?
Right.
What's real? There is truth, and it's objective.
Yeah. I mean, they should change my truth or my perception.
My perception,
My
my
delusion a lot of the
perspective, my
times.
delusions. Yeah, exactly. And before we go any further for right now, Brendan does have a presentation, which is always very welcome, just to show us as they often say in this world, the receipts of the knowledge, because you can sit and talk about stuff, and how is that any more credible than all the other people out there?
Yeah, we could talk about our feelings for an hour or two, but
Yeah, exactly, which I don't mind. But one of the things that Brandon has traded out, helping people get out of the delusions of the alt law world, is to help people build a trading business. And so this is a course that I've been part of for the last, I think, 8 weeks now. I, as a newbie, joined your boot camp. And so if you're interested in learning that, there's going to be elements in his presentation today, I think, that definitely will point towards that. I'm going to share a link that Brandon has gifted me. And so you can look into joining there. I do recommend it. It's a great education. Brandon is an excellent teacher, and he has the real deal with all the receipts. So it's not woo-woo. I honestly can't say how much I'm going to be able to make use of it just with my own makeup and my own self. I might surprise myself, but I'm committed to learning regardless. And it's not day trading. It's not the gambling. This is learning. This is like, we're both pattern hunters,
mm,
right? You hunt for them more in the financial world, and I hunt for them in the psychological, emotional, spiritual world. But it's the same job. Same with the Love Your Liver and over at Nutrition Detective, that I'm a broken record about. That it's all about being a detective and looking at the signs, not just allowing people to create your perceptions through one-liners and sound bites and headlines.
yeah, it allows you to be the creator, essentially, of your own psychic makeup on these things. I mean, you mentioned it's not day trading. Yeah, we're not glued to the screen all day. In fact, most of the people in there are working full-time jobs or full-time businesses. So, and me, I don't stare at the screen all day either. I don't have time for that. So the trading style that we get into, it's hour or two a week of work, but yeah, that's just want to give like a realistic expectation before we get into it.
Anything real is slow cooking. It's not like the instant get rich quick
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not going to show you how to make X amount of money in X amount of days, like a lot of the trading education people will tell you. Frankly, that just isn't possible to
right.
say those two things for sure. So
Exactly. That's my DMs on Twitter, and anybody who messages me there, you can
Oh
see
yeah,
right in their profile, $30,000 in this amount of time.
yeah,
It's like, shut up already. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's how you know.
Yeah.
It's the biggest red flag is usually when it's a high percent return in a short amount of time. Uh, in that bold promise they typically have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So here's the link in the chat. It's also in the notes below. So if you're watching this after the fact without a chat, then you can find that in the show notes. And hello to the Accidental Alchemist. I love your name again. And instead of my truth, it was a first message, preferred a phrase. This is how I understand it at this point. Very lucid, right? Like at this point, this is what I can say about it. There's a question from Kathleen, but maybe I don't know if you want to address this now or later about Martin Armstrong. I'm not even sure who that is.
I don't know who that is.
Okay.
I don't follow anyone.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
Yes.
that's my answer to most people. I don't know who that is. I don't follow anyone.
Yeah, yeah. I'm more and more like that myself. So good. Well, I'm glad everybody is here, and there might very well be time for questions. So we can go ahead, and at any time that you'd like to do your presentation, I can bring it up on screen. Unless there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, I'll give a quick intro, then we can get into the slides.
For sure.
But yeah, while everyone's panicking about World War III, I've been watching a few specific market indicators that Beth has seen in our group. And those have actually helped people in my group, trade things like uranium and get really great trades even before the headlines on the Iran conflict escalated. So what the indicators are telling me right now about the next few months would actually surprise most people. So I'm here to show you how to use the patterns that we were just alluding to, not panic, because a lot of people are outsourcing their takes on all of this. But I want to give you the tools in order to be able to assess this yourself outside of talking heads. So my whole thing is data over drama. I've been tracking markets for years. I've helped my trading mentees navigate markets in all types of market environments, whether in a low interest rate bull market or higher interest rate bear market or something in between, which we're in kind of right now. For most people, they're kind of confused where things are going. So we'll talk about how to see through the noise.
Okay. That sounds good. Actually, one other thing I want to talk about before you show their presentation is on how war is big business. So do you think that's part of the impetus that like how did it even happen? It's so convoluted. The conflict and Iran, and I don't know if you probably don't know who Michael Tsarian is, but I was recently listening to him and David Whitehead talk about the actual history of communism from the Middle East perspective, and he says they've got us all looking at and I'll say Jays just so we don't get that
Right.
right, that we don't get, and other things. Oh, it's all the Catholics and it's the Pope and it's the this and
Right.
that. But he says the real elephant in the room is the Middle East, and that's more of the takeover force that's happening.
Well, you got to realize this always is going to go back to the bloodline. The queen was part of the same bloodline as the Prophet Muhammad, and she bragged about it. So yeah, I when it comes to this stuff, I wouldn't try to use the past to try to predict the future in any conflict, especially this one, just because it's so complicated. So I'll kind of give you the real reasons why this whole thing's happening in the first place. It's definitely not what most people are saying. Whether it's about the business of war, which has an element of the real reason, but it's not the main takeaway.
Okay, yeah, good to know. Yeah, that's
and I'll show you why.
Okay, that sounds good.
But it kind of has to do more of what we talked about in our tariff show.
Okay.
So
yeah.
in fact, speaking of that, I'll share my slide.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have to add it to the stage.
Yeah, there you go.
My side. Yeah. I'll take the banners
So
down.
we'll just do a quick recap because in our tariff show I did with Beth, um, I was just kind of saying some stuff about the trade war in general with the U.S. I believe that show was what, a couple months ago.
Yeah, I'll grab a link.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, basically, I was saying, look, don't don't take what Trump is take what Trump is saying seriously, but don't take it literally, right? So I was saying, the tariffs. It's not like he's actually serious about them. It's just more of a negotiation tool to get what he wants, and mostly it was border stuff. Last time we talked. And then ever since, we still don't have a clear policy on tariffs from him. It just keeps getting delayed. It's unclear. One thing he says 40% tariffs, and the next thing he says 10%. So basically what he wants people to believe is that you can't predict what he's going to do. That's what he wants people to think. And that's exactly what's happening. So from all this manifested what's called the taco narrative. Trump always caves. I can't remember what the O stands for, but basically Trump always caves on what he says, right? Is the acronym for. And this turned out to be the case here with tariffs. So now same thing with my Mexico, Canada, and EU remarks from our tariff show. I was saying, it's likely these guys will cave because they need the U.S. a lot more than the U.S. needs them. And sure enough, all three parties caved pretty quickly on tariffs. So now, lastly, the big concern was, of course, the China retaliation that would come from the 130% tariffs that Trump originally positioned earlier, right? Then he caved on that. China tried to raise prices on coal and natural gas, try to screw us over that way because we buy a lot of it from them. It didn't really work that effectively, and it didn't work that we would cave on our end as far as the 130% tariffs. It wasn't China's actions that led to Trump caving. It was more the fact that legally Trump actually couldn't do these tariffs policies. So they were legally challenged. They still are being challenged. My guess is that by September, we'll have a lot more clarity on the tariffs. In fact, I think most of them will probably go away. There will be some critical tariffs. They're critical to geopolitical security, national security, as far as microchips and other stuff like that. So some more proprietary industry level tariffs, I think, will stick. But I think most of them will go out the door here soon, especially with the U.S. economy getting close to a recession now that we have at least one negative quarter GDP so far. So something to note. Now, another remark I said towards the end of our tariff show was that markets would probably remain resilient in all of this, just because my thoughts were the tariffs were just noise. So ever since then, all 4 points have remained true so far. Now, things could change rapidly as we've seen, but so far, this is a picture of the index of the U.S. market. We had different low points this year. We had the tariff panic here, and then the little Iran short-lived panic there. But today and yesterday, the market actually made new all-time highs in light of all this. So what is going on? Why is the stock market making all-time highs when we're seeing all of this? When we're seeing the U.S. nearing a recession? When we're seeing all the conflict in the Middle East? Well, the conflict gave the U.S. a massive edge over China that no one's talking about in Iran. So get this: 15% of China's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. I might be mispronouncing that, by the way, that word. But here's the thing: in March, 89% of Iran's oil exports went to China. So this means that China is the largest importer of Iranian oil by far. So by the U.S. striking Iran, this not only furthers the wild card element that Trump wants other world leaders to believe and perceive, but it's also disrupting China's major oil supplier, which is a major blow to China and their advantages. And the U.S., of course, is the top producer of oil in the world, and so this is a move. I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but this is a move that Trump is trying to get China to buy oil from the U.S. But yeah, so basically, China is funding Iranian operations by buying this oil. But this is where it gets even more interesting because it turns out China is lying about their oil imports to hide all this.
Okay, that's tricky.
Yeah. Now, according to Chinese customs data, they haven't imported a drop of oil from Iran since mid 2022. But in reality, they're buying about 90% of Iran's exports. So we can actually see that this is mathematically impossible, the deception that China is trying to get us to believe. We can see that 1.1 million barrels per day from Malaysia last year were imported. That's 6 more times than 2018. But Malaysia only produces 650,000 barrels per day total. So where is that extra oil coming from? Well, you guess it, it's Iran. And I'm pronouncing it the American way. I guess Iran is the better pronunciation, but
It doesn't matter.
but yeah, relabeled. This oil is relabeled through ship-to-ship transfers off Malaysia. So this represents one of the largest systematic trade data falsifications in modern history.
Okay. And that unfortunately gives some credence to people who say, oh, well, I'm not going to read the numbers because it's all fabricated. You want to answer that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, so why should you believe that the reasons for the war, at least what the media is telling you, the alternative and mainstream, it's telling you the same things. Why should you believe that your thoughts on this whole war is accurate?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works both ways. But when it comes to the data that shows up, the financials and the indicators, like, what is the guarantee that that's not fabricated knowledge? Is there any, or
Well, yeah, because we can track it historically, at least the indicators that we track. A lot of them, 89% of the time, it predicts GDP historically since the 1940s. So,
right?
yeah, the data, again, the data takes over your feelings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Very good. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, I want to keep going with this crude oil production theme because this is why what we're seeing out east. So as of right now, like I was saying earlier, United States is still the largest producer of crude oil. I screenshotted the top 10 producers in the world. China is one of them, but China is the largest oil consumer. And they don't want to buy oil from the United States, of course, with everything going on. So they're really not left with a lot of options if this Iranian conflict continues. So I wouldn't view this as much as Trump is controlled by the Jays, let's say, as much as the movement saying it's not as black and white as that. Now I get how you can get to that. I get it. But you have to question what is a J, and that gets to a whole other conversation. But anyways, my point is, with all of this, the conflict isn't necessarily about Gaza and Israel. It's much bigger than that. This is actually the deglobalization happening in real time. So the disruption of oil flows around the world is a big part of that, and that's what we're seeing.
Right, and globalization is promoted. That's the big narrative, that the powers that be are consolidating power and turning into one world government. So you're saying that it's actually the opposite what's happening right now.
Well, it's already been a one world government for a long time. So the whole term New World Order. I mean, that's that's a false narrative that they want you to believe. It's been in order for a while. There's nothing new about it. Nation states, think of them as brands of the same company, right? So it's more about, when I say deglobalization, what I mean by that is, the supply chain that was so dependent and intricate at all these other countries. When we had the 2020 events, other stuff like that, we're starting to see how fragile the supply chain is. And it's actually more costly to have a supply chain like this now. So deglobalization is more of an economical thing than an ideological thing, because at the end of the day, the world has always been the one world order. So
Okay, very good.
yeah, I mean, it's just and some people might describe all of this as the chess pieces being moved around. I mean, that's a better way of looking at it than like the one world order trying to take over the whole world, and there's some people trying to resist it, like Iran. I think that's what they want people to believe in the movement, right? But yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, a lot of this is business at the end of the day. It's not even communism versus what do you call it?
Capitalism.
Versus capitalism, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, so China, the Jays, the U.S. I wouldn't view it as all of this as World War III.
Okay. Yeah, it was posited that this isn't World War III because World War II never ended.
Oh, well, I mean, what does that even mean, though? Like,
right.
I mean, sure, you could draw some lines to say that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, countries did surrender, right? So, I mean, that's more of a emotional, ideological framework rather than, okay, what does that actually do for us, though, saying that?
Nothing.
Yeah, so that's what I don't get. So my whole thing as a trader is, okay, I can read the headlines, I can have my own opinions on it, but at the end of the day, my job is not to worry about all of that. I'm just I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is actually going to happen in reality from all of this, and I certainly can't get that from consuming other people's opinions on all of this. So yeah, that's why I just try to put the data together, because yeah, I mean, you can say, oh, well, the data is fake, but what do you have? I mean, if you don't have data, then what do you have? You're going off your emotions again. So
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, the fact of the matter is, tracking the data does give you results. The fact that you don't know, tracking the data doesn't gives you results, means that you aren't successful. So
very good.
Anyways, while everyone's trading on the headlines, mainstream and alternative, because again, that if you haven't noticed, both parties are saying the same stuff. Everyone's obsessed about gold, silver again. They're saying, those are the next things to take off. It's like the next Bitcoin or something. But while that's all happening, I mean, yes, precious metals can benefit from panic. But panic doesn't always stay. And there are other commodities out there. It's a big world. We got crude oil, for example, uranium. Those are commodities more affected by all this. So, if Iranian nuclear facilities being striked, that's a big deal for a commodity like uranium, right? So while buying gold and silver can give you small returns in times of panic like this, there are other things that happen outside of the subject areas that the talking heads are trying to get you to focus on. Now, this is another factor of why this is all happening. The world's supply of uranium is getting shorter and shorter. And we can see that in the price action of uranium, actually, especially with all this going on, this is making this problem even worse. Now,
what's the cause of the supply getting shorter?
Well, it's the activity of nuclear facilities around the world. Iran ramping up their production recently, the U.S. actually using nuclear facilities for their data centers instead of normal power supply. Just because, at least in the U.S., our data supply is not going to be enough for the AI data centers that they're wanting to build by 2027, 2028. So in order to facilitate all that, we have to go nuclear. So especially with someone like Trump coming in, now that sector has really got deregulated. More so because, ever since the Fukushima event, especially the liberal types, they're kind of more afraid of nuclear energy, even though it's actually the cleanest source of energy that we have in mainstream energy sources. So, anyways, a lot of the public policies avoided uranium, but now with everything going on, the need for it and geopolitical tensions, this is actually a tailwind for uranium.
Right. Yeah. And if anyone still believes in nuclear weapons, I think that's pretty well debunked now.
Yeah, it's not about the weapons. It's more about the power supply. That's the use case of it, right? Which is a huge use case. I mean, especially right now in the U.S. and really, I say the U.S., but worldwide. A lot of at least the G7 countries, they're trying to get into this AI infrastructure. So this is really one of the elements driving up uranium. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because while everyone was panicking just recently about Iran and all this, earlier this year, I actually mentioned uranium was, in my opinion at the time, beginning of the year, I was saying, in my opinion, uranium was looking bullish. And I thought, the price of it would go up over time because of certain reasons. Now, while other people were panicking over Iran, the U.S. strike that happened the other day, before the headlines even came out, one of my trading mentees actually traded a company involved with nuclear energy, and they got a pretty good return. And this, mind you, this is 29 days ago from today, so this is before all the headlines came out and uranium prices shot up even more. So this is just a sign, instead of reacting to stuff like they want you to do, the news and the headlines and all this is being used to make big players money when the headlines come out, right? And then the market moves in more. They forecasted this months ago, right? So when people are reacting, that's, well, and no shock to you guys. I mean, that's exactly what they wanted, and they get what they want by having the markets the way they are. So, yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit? That the news is used to make big players money, and what are the mechanics of that? How do they make money on, like, people are fear buying now, or what's happening?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best time to enter a trade is before everyone's talking about it, right? So in order to do that, professional traders, because the stereotype is we rely on insider information exclusively, right? And that does happen sometimes, sure, I'm not going to deny that. But what's more realistic is that these commodities that are involved with these kind of conflicts, like uranium, the big players that shape the world, that own the facilities that refine these commodities or own the media, they're going to get into these commodity trades or stock market trades before the headlines come out. And then when the headlines come out, you can use the headlines as liquidity. So by the time everyone is reacting to it, I'm already getting out. If that makes sense. So there's an old phrase out there amongst professional traders. They say, buy the rumor, sell the news. So the rumor of uranium at the beginning of the year was, hey, if the U.S. infrastructure is not enough power supply for all the data centers, plus all the geopolitical concerns, the nuclear activity, it's looking bullish for uranium, right? Now, the Iranian conflict and all that on top of it just added fuel to the flame. I was anticipating U.S. to strike Iran, but you can anticipate the underlying macro factors to drive things like commodities in this direction.
Okay. And what's the result then of the headlines for the people? Is it just like that's more or less inconsequential? It's just when the big players are going to sell off.
Wait, sorry. Can you?
Oh, I'm just curious. So, like, the headlines have effects, and they put them out for a reason, right? That's engineered. They own the media. They own those big companies, and so what are they basically wanting people to do with those headlines?
Oh, I see. Well, panic. I mean, if you haven't noticed, how many people posted about it on social media?
Like
Right.
panic, and then what?
Oftentimes sell the asset that, for example, the stocks. Like when the tariffs, the panic over that was at a peak back in March. There are headlines like, "Should you sell your stocks?" So it's something like that, right?
Mhm.
And that would actually help them in that situation.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. It's like, how
Yeah.
does that serve them?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, your misconception is fueling the trade that they're in, right? Or if they're in the media business, the perception of all this is driving more activity in the markets. So like the retail traders, it's another name for people trying to do this on their own at home, trading the markets. They try to trade off of the news, right? So they see the headlines come out and then try to trade it. That's the usefulness, because how do I make this simpler? So, I don't know. Sell the rumor, buy the news. Hopefully that's explanatory.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just getting down into the micro of it. So, like, what's the
It's
effect?
really not that complicated.
Yeah. But the effect when people panic sell. So that means
Mhm.
they're taking money out of the markets, and then does that lower the markets and then make it cheaper for others to swoop in and purchase?
Yeah, it can. Like for example, during let's see, let me show you a screenshot. Yeah, so like this crescendo here at the tariff panic here back in March, April area.
Mhm.
Instead of because when you see the markets making new all-time highs like this, a lot of the times smart money is hesitant to keep buying at the top, and not because they know it's the top, but more so, we have certain tools where we start to see, okay, this is getting the highs, and I can explain this later in my notes, but here, actually, let me get to that now. But basically, the panic selling is such a bottom crescendo that smart money institutions start buying up the pieces.
Right.
Right. Or in the reverse, if we're in a bull market and people at home just think the markets are going to go to infinity, oftentimes we can use that to short the market easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Hello, Braden. He just had a quick comment. There may have option contracts that are time sensitive if they can use media to manipulate the asset price in real time prior to contract expiration, allows for huge profits.
Yeah. I mean, that's another element. That's so complicated that I wouldn't be able to explain on this show fully, because then we have to talk about options and explain how
No
those
worries.
work.
Yeah, no worries. That's kind of like insider, and that's what Brennan does teach in his course that we're talking about.
Yeah, but the point is, I'm not worried about what insider traders are doing. I'm just doing what I do.
Right.
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 So
yeah, that's good. Simplifies it.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's go back. Oh yeah, so I wanted to bring up gold and silver because everyone's talking about that right now. But okay, so people even like Candace Owens all the way to your like Stu Peter types. They're trying to sell you gold, especially right now, and it's pretty convincing. Like their statements when they read the endorsement. But what I have here is the performance year to date. So beginning of the year to now. So gold is in the red line, and then silver's in the blue. So gold is up 20s, almost 27% if we round up, right? Which is not bad, but it's not as great as you may think, right? Like, I mean, it sounds like gold is like doubled in year to date, right? Silver is actually up around the same percentage, 26% year to date. So really, this isn't impressive because it took gold and silver so long, but especially silver, because I mentioned that on a few shows, but I love to bring it up again because silver, notice this is at 20, it's around what, 36 an ounce right now. But the highest it's ever been was in the mid 40s an ounce, and that was back in the 1970s. So we're not even at the highest it's ever been in the 1970s now.
Right.
Now gold has appreciated more than silver for sure. That's more inflation hedged than silver. But it's, as I've shown you in the past shows, gold doesn't always perform well in inflationary environments. So right now, gold is more benefiting from the uncertainty, at least from what we had at the beginning of the year with the tariff panic and the geopolitical uncertainty. But now that we're getting more certainty in those things, we might start to see this performance go down.
Okay. Yeah, it's not very high. That's like,
But yeah, I mean, compare this. I mean, we're just trading. We're not even planning for the Iranian war necessarily, and we just happen to make this return, right? And we're not. It's not like we're holding physical gold or silver. We're not hoarding it. It's not sitting there doing nothing. And mind you, this is just one out of many trades we can do within a year, right? Whereas this is just a one-trick pony. You hold it, and then when you go to sell it, a lot of people don't factor in because they think, oh, my gold coin or silver coin is numismatic. That's what the dealer will often tell you. They'll try to tell you, hey, we sell you special coins that are rare. And so you're going to be able to sell them for even more than spot price. Believe me, when you go to the dealer and try to sell them back, they're not going to pay more than the numismatic value, right? They don't care about that when you go to sell it to them. They care about you when they go to sell to you, though. So
right,
that's a big trap. So people might brag, hey, I got this 1945 Krugerrand or something. I don't know. I'm just making it up. It's more numismatic. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up getting below spot price once you sell your metals because the dealer takes that often 10% or higher fee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Is there ever a better time to sell your metals if you regret having them?
In times like this, I would say, it's rare that gold and silver make, especially silver. It's rare that silver is up in this range. Typically, silver ranges from 14 to 20 an ounce. Like that's the typical price range. But now that's 36 an ounce. That's higher than it historically is typically. So of all times, I would say it's better than most times for silver. Now, gold is at near an all-time high as of right now, so not a bad time. As compared to 10 years ago when it was basically a 10-year period where gold was giving a flat to negative return for about 10 years there. So that's a bad time to sell.
Okay. Thanks for that. So where would you like to go from here?
Oh, yeah. So this kind of goes into how I was saying, the institutional players, they buy up the pieces when the people panic. And this is what I have pulled up here is the S&P index again. This S&P 500 ETF, often called SPY. It's a cool name for it. But what's interesting here is that I don't know if you can see it, but here on the lines below the chart, here in these like smaller, almost different chart, this is an indicator that we use called market breadth. So this is part of my 5-minute portfolio strategy that we call it. But basically, it's an indicator that we can use, and a lot of institutional players use this to know when to buy up the pieces of the bearishness that just got overdone. So I did this recently. This was not. So this bar right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not when I share my screen. Can you see when I
I
move it or
was
not?
seeing it, but I'm not seeing. Oh yeah, there it is at the top. Okay, yes,
Oh, okay.
we are seeing it. Yeah, I wonder if I
Cool.
can make that even bigger. So bear with me if I ruin
I don't
this
know.
first
Yeah.
time. No, that's you.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Maybe
there
not.
it is. Did it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. So this was this line right here. That each line represents a whole week of movement, by the way, or a whole
Okay.
day of
Mhm.
movement on this asset. So this was like when the Iranian strike. This was Monday, right? Because the Iranian strike happened during the weekend. So this was like at the peak panic of that, right there.
Mhm.
But we actually saw more panic with tariffs
Okay.
back here, and this was back in March
Mhm.
through April. So, anyways, we can see here that market breadth here, it's only crossed through this level over a dozen times since 2020. So historically, it's very rare that it does so. And when it fails to break through that, that's typically pretty bullish. And when we start buying them up the pieces. So I did this recently. This was about a couple months ago. And since despite all of the tariff panic, the Iranian panic, trading the indexes with option contracts, you can get quite the return. Now, I'm still in this position, so this isn't the final result. But as of right now, I'm up 152% on this trade right now on the index. Just using this technique of trying to buy up the pieces. Now, it's not like I can perfectly predict the bottom ever. I never truly say, hey, this is the bottom, right? But we have a pretty good idea that it could be.
Mhm. Mhm. It's always. Oh, that was the bottom. You can see it
Right.
in retrospective.
Like you can see back here, I'm not trying to buy back here because that's when you really don't know when it's the bottom.
Right,
So,
right. And
yeah.
it's because of the supply chains are much more greatly affected on the tariff issue than the war one, correct?
Oh yeah, there was a lot more uncertainty with that, I would say,
Mhm.
because with that, it's like first of all, we don't even have a set tariff policy. It could be 10%, it could be 130%. So we don't know. And then that also was more company specific. The war doesn't necessarily impact companies as specifically as tariffs. So let me give an example. Like a lot of companies, they report 4 times a year of how they're doing to the public. All the information is public, all the numbers. So, anyways, a lot of companies recently reported in Q1, and they said, "Hey, because of tariffs, we can't tell you how well we think we'll do because that's typically what they'll do every year. At the beginning, they'll say, "Hey, we think we're going to perform. We're going to have XYZ results in our earnings this year for the full year." They'll give you like a general idea. The idea is for them to beat that, and that they're being conservative.
Mhm.
So that's the idea, right? But this year, the companies are like, "Hey, we're withdrawing the guidance, and in fact, we're pretty worried about everything going on. So we're removing forward guidance, and so that investors don't like to hear that because when investors see that, they hear, "Hey, now I'm a little nervous. I think I should pull my money out because now the company doesn't have confidence in what they're doing." So yeah, that's why we saw a lot more panic with the tariffs. But
Right.
now that the taco thing, the Trump always caves thing is manifested, we can see that the markets have definitely already priced that in. And they've already priced in the recession also because we started to see some of the indicators that we track. We started to see those crack the past few months. So this is pricing tariffs, but also pricing in a possible recession back here at this bottom.
Mhm.
And now that the market's making new highs, people might be wondering, well, in light of all of this, conflicts, the tariffs, the possible recession we're in now, why is the market making all-time highs? Well, the market is a year or two forward thinking. And so this is them thinking about all of that about 3 months ago by now. And they're already ahead to the next thing. So now the next ball to drop is Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He's been keeping interest rates high. He's the main reason for all this, right? Even Trump wants rates to go down. He's refusing to lower rates. So this is not great for economic growth. And that's often the reason why recessions happen, right? That's the main driver.
So Powell has the ability to go against, oppose Trump.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the thing, because a lot of people say the Federal Reserve or Trump controls the Federal Reserve or Powell, but it's not that easy. The Federal Reserve is an independent agency of the U.S. government, so it doesn't have to abide to the president, because otherwise, if the president could control the Fed chair, it would give a bad perception to democracy, right? And the Fed, they're supposed to stay independent of politics, because if they didn't, my God, I mean, it would be even worse.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But now the next big catalyst, because the catalysts like Iran, terrorists, that's old news. That's already happened. We've already priced that in. Now the next big ball to drop is, who's the next Federal Reserve chairman going to be? Is it going to be someone who's going to lower rates more or keep interest rates high? This is right now what we're seeing. The market is pricing in that the Fed will appoint someone that will likely lower rates more so than Powell would. Because Powell his term is ending in 2026.
Okay.
And remember, the market's thinking in 2026, 2027 right now.
Right. There you go. Interesting, pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, I'm still holding on position because I would like more than 140% return on this index trade of mine, but just shows an example. Like, it's pretty good year for gold, I'd say, historically. Silver too, but with that context of silver still not over its all-time high. Gold is, though. Side note. Besides all of that, it's still a lot easier to outperform a lot of the traditional investments that's often pushed on us.
Right.
And this is one example. I mean, there are thousands of different assets you can trade. So it really depends, like what's happening, what you think is going to happen. So it's not like you have to just stick to just gold or silver coins.
Very good. Anywhere else you want to take us?
Well, that was my last slide, actually. I mean, there really isn't too much more to talk about when it comes to the Iranian conflict, just because, like I was saying, a lot of people are trying to draw conclusions with history, but I would really caution away from doing that with this.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how the truthers and the preppers, as soon as there's World War III is coming, and put your head between your knees and buy all the prepared food and stuff, and it's just.
Yeah, I'm seeing less of the prep food stuff. I think that was more of a 2020 thing, or leading up to it too. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't watch this stuff anymore, but I see more of the metals pushed than the prepper foods. But also, I'm seeing offers for people getting their mortgages refinanced. Those are big sponsors of a lot of shows nowadays that I'm hearing about. So, like, I don't know if you guys have heard of HELOCs before, home equity lines of credits, but it's being pushed a lot right now because a lot of people are going through a tough time financially, and they might have some equity in their house that they have a mortgage on. They might owe $300,000, but maybe they have like 100,000, 200,000 in equity. So a lot of these companies now are offering, these lending companies are offering people with mortgages, hey, you can loan against the equity that you have with your already existing mortgage. So you can get a second mortgage and pull that money out and use it for something. Let me tell you, more times than not, I see that go south for people. Bad idea. Now, if you have a high net worth, and that's a different story, and your balance sheet outweighs the liability of that debt, then sure, that makes sense. But yeah, that's another thing that's being pushed. That's pushed out a lot in the financial world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not good. And a lot of people are doing it, and especially right now, the high interest rate environment that we're in, you're not only overpaying with a second mortgage now. Now you're also overpaying with the high interest rate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I've showed you before, it might have been our last show, I can't remember, how amortization works on 30-year mortgages. But basically, with 30-year mortgages, you're paying for two loans because of how interest works on amortization. So unless you pay it off sooner than the 30 years, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you own your land and stuff. And like,
Yeah, people are so hung up on that. Oftentimes I see like that's people's like first asset class that they invest into, or their first investment. It is like a piece of raw land, which I think it makes sense if you have the means to build on it. But if you don't, and you're just using it for speculation, you think that it's going to be a good speculative investment. Raw land is typically not the case. It's more so a piece of land with a house would be better for that.
mm-hmm. Mm, some inherent value there. And what do you see happening with the dollar these days? It seems stable as ever? Like,
Oh, not really.
no,
I can
okay.
show you the dollar has
Okay, yeah.
actually been dropping.
Or stable with reference to Canada, I guess that's what I've been
Oh, yeah.
watching. Yeah.
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 Okay, let me share my screen. We'll pull up the Dixie, the dollar index here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dollar index, since we last talked, Beth, has dropped quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the main reasons actually is that the currency market, they're pricing in that the U.S. is going to lower rates next year to 2027. So when that happens, the value of the dollar drops quite a bit, of course. Now, we did see the dollar rise in 2024 just because the Federal Reserve, they were shrinking their balance sheet, contrary to what the talking heads were saying, endlessly printing money. They're actually shrinking their balance sheet in 2024. So that actually helps the dollar go up. And also inflation was going down a little bit. Now, the opposite is true. Now, the Federal Reserve, they haven't done anything with rates really. They've dropped them a little bit, like a quarter basis point. But that's not the main reason why the dollar's dropped right now. The main reason is that it's looking likely that once Jerome Powell is removed, interest rates are going to go down to 2010 levels. We're already starting to see it in Switzerland. Switzerland is actually now just in negative interest rates. So they're the first country to go back to that, at least in the G20 countries. So that's something interesting to know. We are starting to see worldwide decline in GDP growth, economic growth. So, I think the main takeaway of the dollar index right now is that the likelihood of recession in the U.S. is pretty high. So the dollar is just reflecting all of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you said, is it 2 or 3 losses of GDP is an official recession? Which one was it?
It's two consecutive negative GDP growth periods.
Right. Yeah. So we're almost there. We had one, and then so that's kind of around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens in a recession? If you don't mind me just asking these.
Happens to markets or just in general?
Like both. What happens in the
Okay.
markets? What happens everywhere?
Yeah. So markets, it depends. Markets usually have already priced in the recession. So typically, markets are not going to react how people think they would.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, I don't know if we've discussed this or not on on your show, but I've mentioned it probably a few times. But GDP, when it comes out, it's lagging. It's showing you like what happened way late. So our job as traders is to anticipate that way ahead of time. And so the S&P, what I was showing you earlier, that's what smart money uses to price in where they think it's going. So, um, so yeah, I mean, basically, you would see what we saw earlier, where markets dropped months before we actually saw the recession headline come out. Now, when the headline comes out, you might see like a little panic, but it's not going to be, um, like a COVID level drop necessarily, unless it was a big shock. This time, it's not going to be a shock. Most of the times, it's not going to be. Sometimes it is, but not lately.
Okay. And then what are the results of that recession for like the average person?
Oh, the results is pretty bad. The results usually is in the jobs added to the U.S. Each month. It's a measure economists use. That usually gets really low and negative, and that can be really bad, and that can lead to layoffs, of course. So that's often after the recession news comes out because employers are waiting to hear it, and then when they do, now they feel the need to cut people
Yeah.
or
So,
make less business investments, and we are starting to see that. Another big part of it is consumers, because consumer spending, at least in the U.S., is the biggest part of GDP, and we're starting to see that shrink. Not a shock to some of us in the group with the indicators that we look at. But when the recession headline comes out, now that's going to typically drive consumers away from big purchases. So if you're in a business that's kind of more high ticket, that can be problematic. So oftentimes we'll see businesses that are more, how do you say it? More luxury, kind of more like you don't really need it, kind of a thing, like a vacation, or if you're in that type of business in the leisure, something like that, probably not going to do as well as someone's selling something like toothpaste, right?
Yep, exactly.
So
Yeah. And is it true, or is this just my limited perception that there seems to be a greater market for luxuries now, or at least more luxury things on the market? And is that a sign of the population getting richer and poorer at the same time?
I think so.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely. I mean, especially the asset class is what I like to call them. Because I don't really like to think of it as lower, middle, uh, higher class anymore. The stereotype, the middle class is shrinking. There is some truth to that. We are starting to see more discrepancy in the wealth gap, but um, the wealthiest people I know don't buy the high ticket items. Mostly like the designer stuff, and the big houses, the nicest cars, the Bugattis. Typically, they're more of the stealth wealth, right? So I would say that trend into the luxury items is more so dumb money than smart money.
Hmm.
Um, and so that, in my opinion, is worse for the economy, right? Because if they can't afford it and they're still buying it, what happens when they can't buy it? Well, now those luxury brands are going to suffer even more, and we're already starting to see that. Louis Vuitton, the company that owns Louis Vuitton, they're a publicly traded company, one of the biggest publicly traded companies in Europe. I think it's the largest market cap in Europe. They've started to see decline for quite a bit already. So yeah, I think it's more to do with social media and people wanting to look rich.
Yeah, appearances are everything. If you look and you feel rich and you do rich things, then you must be rich. And
Yeah.
yeah, someone was telling me that billionaires don't get there because they love to spend. It's the other way around, that they're
Mhm.
extremely responsible and tend to be frugal.
Oh, they're the most frugal people you'd ever meet.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, not the spendthrift. And let's see, I think that's pretty much all the questions that I had. I don't know if there's anything else
Yeah.
that you want to go into. You're
Well,
welcome to.
I really don't have any set predictions for this conflict right now.
Mhm.
when it comes to that stuff, I really try to stay away from that. No one truly knows. All I can do is try my best guess on what markets are likely to do in the future. So right now, it's looking, contrary to what most people are thinking, it's still looking bullish in the short term, at least as of right now,
Hmm.
with everything going on, at least in the U.S. stock market. So yeah, we have some interesting catalysts for 2026, 2027 that I think are going to start to be more of a priority than the old news.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, very good. Well, should we leave it at that? Thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on and giving us your update. I always appreciate that a lot. And thanks for everyone to join. I wanted to let people know that the Trading Business Builders is starting up again with a boot camp in August. You said, do you have a date yet for that?
Yeah, so we're gonna likely do that. I don't have the exact day, but it's likely going to be towards early August.
Towards early August. Okay.
Yep.
And I shared a link again in the chat here, and also it's in the notes below. Before we go, I'd just let you know that the Journey Code Coaching Certification Training coming up in September is now open for applications. And for anyone that reaches out to me before the 30th, so at least by Monday, or before the 30th, then you qualify for a free Hero's Journey archetype reading where you get a personal one-on-one service with me in addition to everything else. So it's a nice little entry point into exploring the unconscious, finding out where you're getting stuck, why you're stopped in your tracks to make good choices, and how to create your life rather than just always be reacting to the headlines and the news. Be the creator, because that's one of the things, I've gone through other recessions and not noticed them. Like it does, I
Right.
just stayed in my lane and I did my thing. A lot of people have gone down in the last while, and I know myself and people around me have been able to grow during the harder times. But that's when you're more in control of your own destiny and you can pivot and make new decisions as you go. And that's what I always hope for people, that they could find a self-employed life of some kind. And to me, coaching is amazing because you have it's so carte blanche. You can create your coaching business in any way that you want. And if there's any blessing that I think, more people could benefit from, it's what we've talked about from the very beginning today, to have more mastery in their inner lives. So they're not always letting that push them around and have authority over them, which it appears by all appearances to have, but it doesn't. And that's not the end all and the be all. So it's a good way to see through illusions. And to sign up for a conversation, I call it a Journey Code conversation with me. You just put your hand up at my website. You can visit bethmartins.com to do that, and or message me on Telegram. I've got the King Hero chat on Telegram, Brandon's Telegram group. Also, I'll share a link one last time to that because it's a good place to go and get some of those older videos, like you said. And I'm here for you if you have any.
Yeah, I kind of treat my Telegram like a Twitter because I don't really tweet that much.
Right.
Sometimes I post my thoughts there too.
Right. Yeah, my Twitter's gotten eaten up with Love Your Liver stuff. So that's pretty much all my friends over there. And it's not a bad place that way. Everybody complains about how brutal Twitter is, and I only know good people there. So it's
Yeah,
nice.
I just don't really go on there much, but I don't have any complaints really.
That's good.
So
That's
it's
good.
better than most of them, I would say.
Yeah, it's who you know. Like if you know a bunch of assholes and you let them tell you crappy things all day, then that's your experience, right? So I don't have that. It's a little harder to block someone there. If you block them, they can still like post on your posts, on your
And
threads and stuff like
Twitter?
that. Yeah, yeah. You just
I didn't
don't
know that.
see them. Yeah, you just don't see them, but they can continue to have conversations with everybody else. It's really kind of stupid. Yep, go figure. But anyway, you can find me also on Twitter and Facebook, and but Telegram's my main go-to place. If you want to message me one-on-one, you can always find my King Hero chat and
Yeah, I
put your hand
noticed
up.
millennials and Gen X, they prefer Telegram the most.
They do, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something, I don't know why. I just got habituated to it, and it was claimed to be much more private, but we know that's all BS now. It's not, right?
Yeah,
So
there's quite a big backdoor, especially for the Russian government in that,
right.
despite what the founder wants you to believe. So yeah, and I assume the same thing with Signal, all of them. You just have to assume that they see everything when it comes to communication.
Exactly. If you turn it into data, then it's harvestable. So, do you know anything about the creator of Telegram? My son was asking me because my son now, he's pretty discriminating, but he considers the owner of Telegram, who's a Russian guy, to be a hero and having done good things. But you think it's literally he's just opened the door?
I don't know. I don't think he's all nefarious guy.
Mhm.
I don't know too much about him,
Okay.
so I can't have a strong opinion on the guy. But I will say it looks like he did strike a deal with the French government. So there could be some back blow from that.
Right. Right. That's who put him in jail not too long ago.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you strike the best deals.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what comes from that. But yeah, I assume most people didn't put private stuff on Telegram anyways. But yeah, good to
Right.
know though.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I could talk to you all day, but maybe I'll let you go. And I know your class is going to be starting in less than an hour, and I will see you there.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Lots of love to everyone. Have a great rest of your day. I'll play us out with another piece by my son, who is Psycho. On last thing I'll do is just grab his YouTube channel, put that in the chat. He's not a psycho at all. He's very level-headed and good master of his own emotions. So, all right, Brandon, thank you once again. I totally appreciate you taking the time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.